Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Powercast. So this week we have Paul with us, Paul Webb, and I don't normally read out people's bios, but it's pretty impressive. So I was going to read this out to get us started, and then I'll have a chat. So Paul is a former professional athlete, and his life took an unexpected turn when injury caused him to retire prematurely. A deep internal drive that he had unfinished business in the sporting world led Paul to travel across the world to qualify as one of the first strength coaches in the UK. After setting up his own facility, Paul spent almost 20 years coaching athletes of all levels, from weekend warrior to Olympic athletes and world champions from all over the world and in multiple sports. He's authored 2 best-selling books on strength and performance that have continually sold well over the past few years. During this time, Paul trained a wide variety of people out of his award-winning gym in East London, but found himself on only what can be described as a journey of self-discovery. He began to change the focus of his coaching philosophy by firstly incorporating mindset coaching alongside his strength and performance programs. The results were outstanding and led Paul to be recruited by some of the most well-known mindset coaches in the world. Paul came to a decision a few years ago that running the gym that had been successful for almost 2 decades no longer served the direction he was going in. And so he sold that to continue his spiritual self-awakening. Paul began coaching clients on their own spiritual journey, drawing on years of experience both in his own life and through working with thousands of clients. He's traveled the world from the UK to the US and even to Saudi Arabia, working with Hollywood actors, entrepreneurs, CEOs, Olympians, and royalty, helping all to achieve levels of success in their lives that far exceeded what they expected. So I'm so happy to have Paul on, excited to have a chat about your amazing journey. So thanks for jumping on with me, Paul.
It's an absolute pleasure, Aline. Is that really me that you just said that?
You're like egos.
You're sitting there thinking, did I do that? Was that really there? But yeah, it's quite a journey, right?
Yeah, amazing. And, I can relate with working in the fitness industry, then stepping into personal development, mindset work myself. So yeah, really excited to chat about that.
It does seem a kind of pathway, doesn't it? I know quite a few older, let's say, PTs and coaches that kind of make that transition.
Yeah, definitely. So what originally got you in, what originally got you into setting up your gym? Was that the first thing you did in the fitness industry? Or?
Yeah. I'm a 70s child, right? As you probably can see. And so when I grew up, we weren't blessed to have the technology and all the availability of stuff to do that kids nowadays have. It truly was a really different time, pre-internet, pre-personal computers, really very, very different. But by the same token, on the other side, had much more freedom. So, you come home from school, you go straight out, you just say to your parents, I'm off out, and they'd say, be back for tea or be back before it got dark or whatever. And it was a kind of a different life, really. So very early on, 6, 7 years old, I sort of knew I was better at football than other kids. I could see I was. I could control the ball better. I could pass the ball better. I had more time on the ball. So I knew that I was reasonably good at that. So I just became obsessed with it. So that's what I wanted to do. So that drove my entire childhood. Everything I did was focused around being a better footballer and trying to become a professional, because that was the dream of pretty much every boy back in the playground there. Yeah. And I was one of the very fortunate ones that I could do that I actually made that transition. So that was my first sort of step away from a normal environment into the professional sporting world and potentially into celebrity, because, back then, everyone wanted to be a footballer. So everyone knew you were a footballer. So I was living in the area that I would play for Crystal Palace. So I was near the area. So I got spotted when I went out shopping. Kids would come over and ask for your autograph. There were no selfies then, of course, because there were no phones. So you would go out with your family or your girlfriend or your friends, and people would stop you and ask you to sign a bit of paper and that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a bit of a surreal time. Yeah. But as you so eloquently said, I got injured, unfortunately, just as I was transitioning to the first team. With a big, long future ahead of me, I ended up with a career-ending injury. So that was my first foray into, this is what I've wanted to do all my whole life. I'm blessed, I'm doing it. And now, it's gone. It's been
Yeah.
taken away. And you know that back then, there were no schemes for ex-professional footballers at all. There was no counselling. There was nothing. You just went into the office. They said, your contract's up. We're getting rid of you. We're releasing you. Go and grab your boots and go. Yeah, basically go now, you know.
Yeah. How
And
did you deal with that?
badly, it's like, what? If you think about it, right? So my manager at the time was Steve Coppell. Steve Coppell, I don't know if you know, or your listeners or viewers do, but he was a famous Manchester United footballer who played for England and had his career ended by injury. So here I am injured, like tenuous as to whether I'll be back playing again or not. You would think that there would be a bit of empathy from someone that had gone through it. But actually, no, there was none of that. There was no sympathy, no empathy, nothing. It was just a case of like, you're injured, I don't want to speak to you.
Wow.
It was really harsh. So that was very difficult to get over. But I'm quite determined. I'm quite single-minded and focused. So I just trained. I guess I was fortunate that my cousin at the time was British powerlifting champion. So he was a big hulk of a guy.
Yeah.
Tattoos, long hair, played the electric guitar, rode a Harley, bit of a hero, you know. And so he wrote me a strength program, went into the gym, started training with all these powerlifters. It was great. It was really, really good. This was mid-80s, late 80s.
When it was massive.
Yeah. So I tried to come back. I got released by Palace, went to Fulham, did a pre-season, but just couldn't play and train every single day. The injury was just too severe. So that was it, really. So then I had this kind of dilemma about what to do next, because I just focused wholly on one thing, right? Which we know will bring you results, right? You know, if you focus on one thing, turn up every day, do the work, deliberate practice, intention, all that kind of stuff, you get better at that one thing. But other things you're not doing. Now I've got to decide what I'm going to do, right?
Yeah. And I think as well, you can tie your purpose and identity into that one thing. And then when you lose it, you feel like you've lost everything.
Yeah. So I was Paul the footballer. I was Paul the goalkeeper. I was Paul that was the hero at my old school because I was the first person to transcend the school and become famous. I was Paul the goalkeeper who everyone in my family was like, whoa, we've got someone who's going to be on the telly in our family and all that kind of thing. And all of a sudden I was Paul, just Paul.
Yeah.
And it was really, really difficult. And I didn't have the skills I have now to be able to cope with such, devastating news and almost trauma, right? Yeah. So I just sunk into a depression. It was I tell you this now, if it wasn't for the training, the exercise, we know when you exercise, it's really, really good for those depressive tendencies, both mentally and physically, right? Yeah. If I wasn't doing that and didn't have that to focus on, then who knows what could happen. I don't know where I would have ended up. But, I kind of tried a couple of normal jobs, discovered that wasn't for me very quickly. Because of my interest in the strength and powerlifting and weightlifting and so forth, I was talking to my cousin about it, and he said, the best thing you can do is go to America. They're so far advanced of us over here with their lifting and that sort of thing. He said, you can find some really good strength gyms. You might be able to do something with that. So that was kind of how I did it. And I did one of those, those coaching things you can do where you go over and teach kids to play football. Yeah. And just basically started looking around for strength gyms. So I went to New Jersey, I went to New York, I went to Florida, and then just found strength gyms. They allowed me to intern. I did some qualifications over there. I became a strength coach, but it wasn't recognized over here back then. Yeah. So that's how I led to set up my own facility.
Yeah, awesome. That's really cool as well, because I can relate to so much of that. Not at any kind of professional level, but I played football for 5 years when I was younger, and I've also competed in powerlifting at a national level in Australia as well, and met people, spent time with Ed Cohen, and got to meet Brandon Lilly and Stan Efferding as well.
Legends, right?
Yeah. Ed Cohen's amazing, and
he
sometimes he'll jump on my live streams, and I'm like,
hey.
like send me messages like, "Well done with your lifts," and I'm like, it's like incredible. Really nice.
And it's lovely when people who are legends in their sport or industry take time out to do that, because it means so much to someone coming up, doesn't it? And it stays with you, as you've just proved.
Yeah, exactly. So then how did you find that transition after you'd gone to the States and set up your gym? yeah, I guess what were the steps that you went through there to really get your head in the right place to be able to do that first of all, and then the challenges or the positive things that came up as well?
The interesting thing was, yeah, see, I am one of life's optimists. I really am, you know, and I came back from America and basically stood in front of all the athletes I know and said, I'm a strength coach. And they looked at me and went, so? They just had no idea. We're going early 90s. They had no idea or concept of what a strength coach was. And when you mentioned weightlifting, they were thinking bodybuilding, right? Oh, and I don't want to let that slow me down. Yeah. So it kind of was an extremely challenging time because obviously I needed to bring money in. I was in the UK. So my dad had a double garage that he didn't use. So I just filled it with some equipment and then started training friends and, you know, some footballers I knew. I started charging £5 a session. 1991 or two. Yeah. 91, 92. Started charging £5 a session, but made sure I trained 3 or 4 at a time just to get the money up a little bit, right? In the gap, real old school type lifting, you know, so basic compound lifts. So that was my introduction into it. And then I thought, I can't keep doing this. So I'm gonna have to, you know, trying to get people to train strength was really, really difficult. But the people I were training were getting into shape. So what they were saying was, oh, I have a sister, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, you know, could you train them? They need to drop a little bit of weight. So I kind of thought, well, okay, more and more people are coming to me asking to drop weight now. Yeah. So maybe I need to start doing much more of that. That seems to be a bit more lucrative. So I kind of transitioned a little bit that way. And that was the idea that led to the gym, which was just a small personal training studio that I rented initially up in London. That I quickly filled up in there. And they were charging me more. They saw how busy I was, and they started charging me more and more.
They want a bit of that.
Yeah. So I sort of thought, well, I don't really want to, you know, they were taking literally half of what I was earning just to have their space. And so I thought, you know, I need to do this myself. I must be able to find the space. So I found an off high street shop that was about 1,000 square feet that I converted into a studio and had a one-to-one training studio. That was my first real gym. And it was, I believe I'm right in saying it was the first personal training studio certainly in that area in London, in East London, but potentially possibly the whole of London at the time. I'm not sure. But, you know, it was a new concept. So people came and had a look. I explained and the really good thing about it was I got results. So that really helped. You know, I kept it really simple. I kept it really basic. It with a slow start, because sometimes these things, you know, we did the usual stuff. You know, we leafleted. I paid my children. My children come to stay with me. I paid them about £20 each, I think, to come with me and do a leaflet drop. All day out, but they wanted money for it. Little entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah. So, my mum used to pay me $5 an hour to be tea and tidy in her hairdressing salon when I was 12. And I used to babysit for friends of families' kids when I was 12. Like, why would you let a 12-year-old look after baby?
I know. They can't even look after themselves half the time.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, that's so I managed to get a client base. I managed to get the business running quite profitably, quite quickly. And I think that the reason I was able to do that was for a couple of one, my overheads weren't particularly high. Right. So when I was in America, one of the coaches that was teaching me strength and conditioning said, nuts and berries, Paul, nuts and berries. So live off nuts and berries, keep your costs down. You go back to the UK and you start doing this yourself. Make sure you don't do what everyone does and spend loads and loads of money on equipment, loads and loads of money on rent. But keep it as low as you can. Build up that, you know, you need to be cash rich. You need to have money coming in, you know, and that was a really interesting and valuable lesson. And so I tried to do that, which is why I went off high street. You know, people said, you know, on high street, you've got a lot of visibility, but you're paying 4 times more rent and business rent.
Exactly. You know, and I've seen so many people start gyms with the most expensive equipment, most expensive rent, and then struggle and work their asses off and not make any money. And then other people, like my old powerlifting coach, for example, started in his garage, you know, and then went to a small facility. And as he made more money and grew his client base, he would buy more equipment or make his own equipment and get a bigger space.
That's exactly what I did. I had one power rack, one bench,
Yeah.
Dumbbells up to 30 kilos, kettlebells,
Yeah.
some bands, one Swiss ball, some mats,
Yeah.
and that was it, really. And a couple of barbells. It cost me about $2,000.
Yeah.
And it was all secondhand. It was all refurbished,
Yeah.
and it really worked. And I kept that for 3 years. It was like that for 3 years.
Yeah. Cool.
Right up until the point that I literally couldn't fit any more clients in, because back in those days, you're talking about charging by the hour, right? So clients were paying you per session, effectively.
Yeah.
Very old school way of doing it. It worked for a time, but it's limited, right?
Yeah.
Because there's how many hours are there in a day you can work.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
how many clients can you get in a day? It's kind of, there's a finite limit now.
Exactly.
So that became the first issue I really faced, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I think that's such a good lesson, just to bring it home even more for people listening around. I think so many people want that short-term pleasure, and they're not willing to go through the short-term pain to get the long-term pleasure.
Yeah.
And and I've done it in the past as well. I'm making more money, so I'm going to go get a private chef and massages every week and buy designer clothes. And then you come back down to reality and you're like, well, if I'm living like this, yeah, I'll have nice things now. But what about the legacy? What about the long term? What about growing to be something more than just having a nice time for a little while?
Yeah, I'm big on teaching clients about the laws of the universe, right? And how when you align to those, things work really, really well. And you just described the law of sacrifice superbly well, that, you give up something of lower value now to have something of higher value down the line. And it's a really important lesson, because people today want everything now.
Yeah.
People today are distracted all the time. We've got so much technology around. We've got so much pull on our time.
Yeah.
Everyone wants everything now. So they've lost this ability to say to themselves, okay, if I want to be a concert pianist in the future, I have to give up going out and messing around with my friends or going online gaming. I have to practice my scales for an hour a day, every day, until I'm good enough to play at a concert piano at this level.
Yeah.
And that's a real skill. And when people understand that and learn that, and most importantly, put it into practice, that's when they get the results.
Yeah. Did you always have that kind of mindset, or was it the thing that that strength coach said that really triggered it? Or what do you think helped you to have?
I got asked this question on another podcast not so long ago, and I went to say, it's something I learned as I went on. But then I remembered a story of when I was really young. And basically, I used to get a weekly football magazine called Shoot, and they would have articles from famous footballers in there. They were probably ghostwritten and whatnot, as these things are. But you would read them as a kid, and you'd be like, that's so. And I can remember reading an article by a former. See, I'm a Chelsea fan, right?
Yeah.
So it was a former Chelsea legend, Ray Wilkins, who sadly died earlier this year. He was talking about a particular skill that he did, where he would be able to, the ball would be passed to him, he would control it in turn at the same time, leaving an opposing player for dead and then passing the ball. And he explained, and there were diagrams or pictures of him doing this skill. So I thought, I want to do that. I must learn that. So I took my football out into the back garden, went out the back gate into an alley that was there, and there was like a brick wall that wasn't sort of much bigger than a foot or two, right? So just a bit wider than the football. And I spent all day, every day, kicking that ball against that wall and controlling the rebound and turning. So what effectively I was doing, I was obsessing about it, of course, but I was practicing deliberately that skill.
Yeah.
And this is what we get clients to do, right? When they want to achieve something new, they have to practice it. There's a process they go through. And this deliberate practice, where you intentionally practice with focus a particular new thing, after time, it starts to be ingrained, first in neurology and then through your nervous system.
Yeah.
So you can unconsciously perform that skill.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing back then. So I kind of guess I've always had it. And maybe it was because I was obsessed about playing football. So it was the football that triggered it. Maybe it was something that I was born with. I don't know. But most behaviors are learned anyway. I can't think of anyone in my family that was quite as obsessive as me.
Yeah.
I'm nearly 50, Ellie, and they still call me weird today, my family. So that makes
Yeah. Well, entrepreneurs are always people who think differently, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Do you think you were, from a young age, had that entrepreneurial mindset, or were there people around you that helped to grow that, or was it just part of your personality? Where did that come from?
I think it was a combination. My parents provided a nice house for us. You know, they struggled to do it. They had what I would class normal jobs. And I used to look at what they were doing and say, I don't really want to do that. You know, because I want to play football. I had this, it opened my mind to possibilities of earning more money than them. It opened my mind to traveling. It opened my mind to performing. You know, I've always been the sort of person that wants people to enjoy themselves. So I've always gone out my way to make sure that everyone's involved, that I can make people feel better. So I used to do that by joking around a lot as a kid. I used to do it with my football. They can come watch me play and feel better. I've done it with my coaching. They can feel better because they look better physically. They get stronger. They have a better result that way. So that kind of, I think, was the genesis of that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, cool. And that's interesting because you can have whatever happen and see what you want from it. For example, your parents weren't entrepreneurial, didn't have businesses, and you had that, I guess, away from motivation of like, well, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Whereas mine was the opposite. Both my parents have always been entrepreneurs, always had their own businesses. So I felt like that showed me the possibilities and that I didn't want to work. So it's cool that either side.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter. There's not one way better or worse than the other. Right? It's whatever gets you to the destination.
Exactly.
You know, and I'm thankful for the upbringing I had because it did instill some behavioural traits in me. There's no question. And my parents were quite strict. They were always having me say please and thank you and opening the doors. And, you know, I thought that to be respectful. And these are just general behavioural traits that enable civilization to get on, right?
Yeah, totally. Awesome. So I guess going back to the gym then, when your gym was full and you said that was really one of your first challenges, trading time for money and having that full gym, what was the next phase of your journey?
Well, there was kind of two steps I took. I went and spent some time back on the west coast of America. So I did a bit of traveling and a bit of work out there. And I was fortunate to be staying in Santa Clarita, which is where Alan Cosgrove has his gym, Results Fitness. And I just walked in one day. I'm going back 14, 15, 16 years, I think. And it was when he had just opened the gym. So it was really, really small. And it was smaller than mine. He had less equipment than mine. But he was crushing in there. And obviously he's Scottish. And a really, really nice guy. So we just had a chat. I said I was in the neighbourhood, blah, blah, blah. And he was doing something really interesting. He had 3 clients working with him at once. And I was talking to one of his staff. He had 1 member of staff at the time. And they were saying it's a semi-private model. So when Alan finishes, he'll come over, have a cup of coffee. When he finishes, he'll come over and have a chat with you about it. So we had a chat, we were talking, and he, you know, was very open, you know, really showed me exactly what he was doing and why he was doing it. And basically, you know, I was charging, I can't remember if it was £40 or £50 a session. Right? And he was charging something like $30 for each client. And there was 3 of them. So $90. So I suddenly thought, right, okay, this is interesting. So I came back to the UK and then started to implement that in that facility. So I offered the clients at Alan's with his advice to say to them, look, I can give you slightly cheaper training, but I'm going to put you with a couple of other people. You know, you'll get that group thing going on, you'll get engagement, you'll get better results and all this. And quite a few decided to do it. Some didn't. They just stayed where they were. So I dropped their money. I think it was £40 because I dropped it to 25 and I had 3 of them in there. So, you know, 20, 40, 60, £75. All of a sudden I'm earning £35 more an hour. So that was great. That kept me going for another year. But again, because of the size of the facility, it gets a bit compromised. It was a small place I had, and, you know, I wanted to move people around a little bit more. I was learning new stuff. I wanted to, you know, I wanted new equipment. So I got offered a much bigger, I think it was about 2,500 square foot place on the high street. And I knew the landlord. He offered it to me before he put it on the market. I went and had a look. He needed a bit of work doing. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a chance. Because I like taking calculated risks.
Yes.
I think that, you know, if we play safe all the time, generally we stay safe.
Yeah. Well, the key word in that's calculated as well,
Yeah,
though, isn't it?
so I knew that I could probably move straight in, open it immediately and start earning some money.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad a condition, but there were 2 floors. There was the ground floor and there was the basement. If I had done that, I wouldn't have been able to use the basement.
Mm.
So I wanted to develop the basement as well, because I could have 2 floors there and I could have much more square footage. There were little rooms downstairs. I could have treatment rooms as well. I could rent them out. So there were multiple streams of income coming into the place. I had a nice shop front so I could sell supplements and sports clothes and all this sort of thing. So I had these really grandiose plans. Unfortunately, I didn't foresee the damp downstairs. So when the builders came in, they quoted us 40 grand for the build and that kind of thing. And I said, yeah, do it. And, you know, they said 6 weeks. So like, fine, no problem. Let's get it done. And then they went downstairs and they said, you've got really bad damp. We're going to have to really strip it back. We're going to have to tank it. That's going to cost you about 60 grand. It's going to, so you've got to do it. You can't, otherwise I would have to block off the downstairs and that would have ruined half my plans.
Yeah.
So that meant that instead of opening at the end of December for the beginning of January, we're now pushing March, end of March, beginning of April.
And that's the whole peak season gone.
Yeah. And it was a really stressful time because, you know, you've got people knocking on the door saying, what's going on? When's it opening? Because we had all the signs up. Well, why aren't you open? You know, and I knew it was in the area I lived in, so I knew everyone. So I was constantly talking to everyone about it. You know, I had brought people in and showed them around, and I had this delivery of all this new equipment that was in a lockup. It was like, this is too much. And in the end, I said to the builders, you know, whatever it takes, you have to finish by this weekend.
Yeah.
The big opening weekend. So they were literally painting as I was showing people around on the opening weekend.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. What's the biggest thing you learned from that experience?
Oh, great question. Certainly, if I could do it again, I would do a lot more research and planning before I started, because I just jumped straight in.
Yeah.
You know, the Paul, the landlord I knew, said, do you want it? These are the terms. And I just went, yep, I'll take it. I didn't even negotiate. I didn't even go and have a really close look. I didn't get an engineer with me and say, right, what's going on? I would have spent the money to do that. And got done my proper due diligence, and then I could have made that decision. And if I'm honest with you, if I'd have known the cost and what was going on initially, I probably wouldn't have moved into it. I probably would have gone somewhere else.
Yeah. And I guess that ties into what we were talking about when we were having a chat before we started recording, that kind of me and you have that personality where we just make fast decisions, which can be a great thing in business. But then at other times it can be be a disservice sometimes.
Yeah, it hurts us. I mean, that hurt me financially to the tune of about 80 grand. Because we were scheduled to spend about 40 grand on the build to get it really nice and the equipment and everything and get it up and running. It ended up at about 120 grand. You know, we had to borrow money. We had to max out credit cards, which I didn't want to do and didn't need to, and that puts a lot of pressure on you. Like when you say everything's ready for the opening weekend, and then 3 months later, you've got a 15 grand rental bill coming in.
Yeah.
You've got 3 months really to hit from scratch to make that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, how are we going to do this now? What system of training people am I going to use? I'm going to go full gym. Am I going to keep it personal training? I'm going to do a combination of the both. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
You know? And so that was an interesting time.
Yeah. And I guess pressure can be good at times, but it can also be very stressful. Yeah. So was that the gym that you were in for quite a while then?
Yeah. That's the one that we won awards for. That's the one that we see. My whole thing about doing it, I got interviewed for the local paper before it opened, and they said, what are you hoping to accomplish with this gym? And I just said, I just want to build a really good community. I want people to come in this place, feel safe, get the results they want, and have some fun.
Yeah.
And we were able to do that. I worked really, really hard on that, because I knew that the way I trained people got results, because it's not rocket science, as we know. You know, physiology is physiology. You know, if you want to get people in shape, you follow the rules, the systems. Like with business, you want to build a business, there are certain rules you follow. You want to build money, there are certain rules you follow.
Yeah.
You do that and you're mindful of everything, you get a result.
Yeah.
It's when you don't do that the problems occur, right?
Yeah.
You get another result. But so I knew that was a given. I knew that if people followed the system and the process that I'd spent years putting in place, they would get a result. So I knew that. So that was not the worry. The worry is like, you know, okay, how is everything else going to work?
Yeah.
how am I going to manage everything else?
Mm.
So I want to make sure that these people want to come here.
Yeah.
When they want to come here, everything else falls into place. So that's what I work really hard on doing.
Yeah. And how did you learn about marketing, sales, scaling a business, or did you have mentors along the way, or how did you learn that stuff?
Early doors, I did it all myself, just by the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
I just thought, what can I do? How do I talk to these people? I was fortunate in so many ways that I lived in a really good community.
Yeah.
You know, I spoke to everyone because I'm one of these people that just talk to everyone.
Yeah.
So I was able to say, oh, by the way, I'm opening this. You should come along, have a look, see what you think. We can have some fun. Da, da, da.
Mm.
So that's kind of how I did it initially. Then I started to look at people that were much more successful than me. Speaking to Alan Cosgrove in the States, and I could see what he was doing and the way he was thinking was a real eye opener, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Because you think, there are ways that you can do this that work much better than the ways I am.
Yeah.
And I'm not egotistical enough to not ask for help, Ellie.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I've always been someone that will say, show me what you're doing. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, I think for some people, if you think you know everything, you really know nothing.
No, absolutely.
I have had clients, well, my best clients have been people that just drop everything that they think they know, and they just listen and they allow me to guide them and find the answers within themselves.
Yeah,
and
you find that you're just unraveling stuff. They're unlearning, aren't they? Because
exactly.
that fixed mindset of it's this way only is so damaging to people.
There's so many ways to run a business, so many ways to make money. Thinking outside the box. You don't need to do it the way every other personal trainer's done it or every other coach has done it. There's so many different ways.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, and then how did you then transition from that? Did you start doing some personal development stuff with your training clients? Like, how did that evolve?
There were 2 or 3 steps I took in my fitness business over the years that had really huge impacts. One was when I had clients incorporate strength training in their normal programs. So normal everyday, disregard the athletes because they're a different breed, right? So, you know, the weekend warrior or the member of the local community that wants to lose a bit of weight, wants to get a bit toned up or whatever. But to have them start to train for strength and get stronger made a massive difference to them.
Yeah.
It made a difference to them physically. It made a difference to them emotionally. It made a difference to them, you know, mentally, all this wonderful stuff, because they started to express themselves a bit. They became stronger versions of themselves, to coin a cliche. So that was one. The second one was the mindset.
Yeah.
Once I started, because I've always been fascinated by the brain. It's something that's really, really fascinating me. And when I was a kid, I was an avid reader, you know, a habit that I still have today. I just read everything. I love reading. Yeah. And I used to read some really funky books, and the brain used to really freak me out when you read about the brain and you know, even back in the 80s, it was still crazy what you were learning. So I knew that, you know, mindset coaching, the way that people were looking at themselves and viewing themselves, you know, was the missing key for so many people. So I started to take courses and trainings in that, and then I started to incorporate it in my life as well. Yeah. Because I've always experimented on myself, you know, with training. Like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to see if it works. You know, like, you know, you look at CrossFit, they do a lot of Olympic lifting. Well, I looked at Olympic lifting years ago because I used to Olympic lift when I was younger. Yeah. And I know how complex a skill it is to learn. So for the majority of people, it's just not worth even trying to do.
Oh, I'm too uncoordinated.
Yeah. I would have them throw medicine balls rather than Olympic lift because it's easier to do, right? So, I would experiment with myself. I would say, all right, it's really technical. I've trained all my life and I'm having difficulty with the complexity of it. Therefore, my clients that don't train, they train 2 or 3 times a week. There's just no way we'd spend too long teaching them it. So let's find something else. So that's kind of how my mind used to work. Yeah. So I started to use the mindset for myself. I started to get really good results, you know, on a personal level and on a professional level. So I started to incorporate into my programs. So my whole thing with the gym, when it was up and running, the really big gym I had, was that it was a lifestyle gym, right? So it was the lifestyle, it was the nutrition, it was the training, it was the mindset, it was the recovery and regeneration. There was all in one sort of thing. So that's how I used to advertise it at the time.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. And then what made you transition then fully from the gym to the personal development? Because obviously having that gym for such a long time must have been a hard decision.
It was. It was a hard decision, and it boils back to that thing with the football, right, where you get tied up in your identity with it.
Yeah.
So that gym ran really, really well. We had ups, we had downs, we did really well, sometimes not so well. But fundamentally, I made two mistakes when I ran that gym. One was not keeping the costs at the beginning with the build under control. Okay, but we managed to pull that back a bit. Yeah. The second one was that I was a bit of a perfectionist, which was my mindset flaw, because I set up everything, because the genesis of that whole gym was me in my garage 20 years before, training people and working out what works and building systems and all sorts of things. So I was involved in absolutely everything in that place. The whole running of it, the coaching of clients, the doing of the nutrition, even though I had a nutritionist, the doing of the recovery, even though I had therapists in there, the marketing, even though I employed someone to do it. I just wanted to be involved in everything. And I burnt out, Ellie, at the end. I'd done it every single day, 7 days a week for 15 years.
Yeah.
And it comes a point where you either mentally go or you physically go. And with me, it was physically go, and I blew my knee out. And I ended up having 3 operations in a year on a knee that every time they went in said it was worse than they thought. And in the end, I had to have 12 weeks off the knee in a brace. And the surgeon said, if you do not take this time off, I won't operate again, then you're done.
Yeah.
So I had to sit at home for 12 weeks. And bear in mind that my whole life was the gym, and my whole being and identity was caught up in it. And I was in a terrible state. Yeah. And the physio who was working at the gym for me, he came to see me, and we were talking about my rehab and that sort of thing. And I was really stressing, and and he said, "What have you thought about selling the gym?" And I was like, "Well, no, who's going to buy the gym?" And he said, "Well, I might know someone.
Yeah.
Leave it with me for a week and I'll get back to you." And he actually came back with a partner and offered me a price for the gym. And at the time, my wife, who wasn't working because we'd had kids, wanted to go back to work. So childcare was a little bit of an issue because I was in the gym 15 hours a day. Yeah. She was going to go and work full-time back up in town. She was going to have to travel for the job. So it was like, okay, how are we going to do this? And it all kind of conspired at the same time. And it was just basically a decision like, okay, I can sell the gym. The clients can still be there. The staff can still be there. It can still run. That was the idea. I've, pretty much done my time. I can come out with a chunk of money. I can recover from the injury properly, and I can move on to another chapter. And I can always set up another gym if I want to.
Yeah, yeah.
Just take some time to heal. And that's kind of the decision that I made.
Yeah, that nothing's ever final. There's no
black. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was why I did it at the time.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Why do you think that you tried to do everything, even though you had the team in place? And what advice would you give to people on that?
Because I thought I could do it best.
Yeah.
Because it was my baby.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was so attached to it and an identity. And possibly maybe because I didn't quite trust the staff to do it as well as I could. And I charged quite a lot of money for that place because I gave such a good service. I thought, I'm going to charge. I've never had a problem charging what I'm worth, so I charged. It was the most expensive gym around. There was people paid a membership, a monthly fee, but it was a coaching gym. There were coaches on board. So they came in, that I created it to flow. So they went downstairs, they warmed up with a coach, they come upstairs, they've done their power and strength work. They went to their, hypertrophy or toning place, whoever you were talking to, and they did their cardio, and then they were cooled down. It was a nice flowy system, and there were coaches at every, place to coach them.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that everyone was sticking to what they were doing, that they were giving the best service they could give to the clients, that they were fully engaged and all that sort of thing. Because the minute they weren't, these clients who were, they were reasonably wealthy clients. It was a reasonably affluent area. They would be straight on me because they knew me. They knew me from the area, and they'd be saying, "Oh, X, Y, Z didn't. Was looking at he was training me today."
Yeah.
So I just thought, in order to make sure that these guys and girls are doing this in the correct way, or what I saw as the correct way, I'm going to be there all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
But after years of doing that, it's a habitual. You can't get out of it.
Yeah, it's a cycle. Yeah. So what advice would you give to other business owners on, I guess, being able to build team to scale around systems or anything like that so that they don't burn out?
I would start with the end in mind first. So what's the ultimate aim here? What's it going to look like? When all is said and done and it's successful and running, what's it going to look like? Okay. And then with that in mind, what do you need in place to make that run smoothly?
Yeah.
Right? And then work backwards to where you are. And then okay, so if I need to write systems for training programs or for increasing profitability or for building products or whatever, that's where you start.
Yeah.
Right. And then as soon as you can, get that first person on board, because you need to, we're creators, right?
Yes.
When we're creating and our eyes off the ball elsewhere, and taking us away from that creating and put us in another places isn't the best use of our skills.
Yeah.
So look for these people who are really good at what they do. You look at Elon Musk, he doesn't build his rockets.
Yeah.
He's the visionary, right? He's the man that goes on telly and says, I'm going to put humans on the moon or on Mars, right?
Yeah.
And then these engineers go, oh, what's this guy talking about? He goes build it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what you want in your team. You want people that can, first of all, buy into the vision.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want people that are rowing the wrong way. It's suicide, right? And I've been there as well. Yeah. But you want people that buy into what you do and you bring them on board as quick as you can.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, awesome. And so then when you transitioned out of that, how did you get into the personal development side of things?
All right, so it's really interesting. So when I was rehabbing with my knee and I was on the sofa with my feet up with a 12-stone mastiff trying to lay on me, I was flicking on YouTube and I saw a video from an old colleague of mine who I'd known from my strength and conditioning days, but I hadn't seen for years. And he had kind of reinvented himself as a mindset coach and was running like a mindset institute, was doing loads of mindset performance stuff. And he was at a Ryan Lee event speaking. And I saw the video and I was blown away by it and how he transitioned out of what he was doing and was now going a different path. And I was reading personal development books, you know, I've been reading for 20 years. And so I just reached out. You know, he actually was my very first friend on Facebook, funnily enough. When I started Facebook about 8 or 9 years ago, he was the first person I requested a friend thing from. And I sent him a Facebook message and he messaged back and said, oh, dude, how you doing? What's going on? And so I had a little conversation with him. He said, look, I don't know what you're doing, what you're planning, but I've got this little thing going on. It's $500. It's 4 weeks. Jump on board. It'd be great to train you in there. So I thought, why not? Let's do that. So that's how I kind of got introduced to him. I went through a mindset process. What was interesting was that he was giving sort of little tactics to do. And I thought, I'm going to give this a go. Did it a go, sent out an email, bit of online coaching, you know, consultancy and that kind of thing. And I think I earned something like $4,000 from doing that, just that one email that I sent out to my list. I sent him a message saying, dude, look, this is what I've done. This is what I've earned. Thank you very much. Now, I was the only person in that group of about 20 that took any action. So he used my email as a testimonial, and then he offered me a place on his mentorship, which was a quite chunky price for me back then. It was about $5,000.
Yeah.
And I went through the mentorship, did really well, started setting myself up as a personal development, mindset kind of coach kind of thing, because that's where my interests were at that time.
Yeah. And
when I came to the end of that course, he messaged me and said, you know, can I have a chat with you? Can we jump on Skype? Or Zoom, actually, fun enough. And I remember my wife at the time saying, what do you think he wants? And I said, oh, I know he's got a much more expensive program. He probably wants to sell me that. And she said, I remember saying, are you going to do it? I said, I don't know. So anyway, I jumped on the call with him. It was on a Sunday and he just said, look, I'm just going to come out of it. I really like you. I really like what you do. I really like the way you do it. Do you want to work with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. I don't know how it was going to work, but, you know, fast decisions, right? I just went, yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. And we started doing some work together and it led to me becoming an integral part of his business. I helped him build all the systems. I helped him develop all the sales processes and the coaching, so the content as well. His wife came on board and they run it together now. We did events, did all sorts of stuff. And that business grew from like nothing to 7-figure within 9 months. The growth was, and it was all done organically on Facebook.
Yeah, awesome.
And, you know, that pretty much, I did that for a year and then I went off on and started to do. I thought, if I can do that for your business, I'm going to do it for mine now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Definitely.
But that's kind of how I did it, and that was about 3 years ago now, I
Yeah.
think.
Awesome.
And I've been running my business in its current form since then.
Awesome. I love the different transitions you've gone through, and I've done similar in transitioning. You know, when something's not serving me anymore, or I've outgrown it, and I'm ready for the next thing. I think a lot of people feel like they've got to just keep going with something because it's what they said they were going to do. But with human beings, we change, we grow, we evolve. And I think if you grow at a rapid rate and you're learning at a rapid rate, there's always going to be different things that you're doing. So I think
I had this conversation earlier today, actually, with a client earlier this morning, and she is afraid of growth, right? What people are going to say, you know, they're going to think I don't know what I'm doing. They're going to doubt me, and I was saying, no, they're not, because as you grow, you attract a whole new person into your community that doesn't know who you are, that sees what you are now, not what you were 20 years ago.
Yes.
You owe it to that person to grow, to meet them, so you can help them. And then you'll probably move on again, because as you say, Ellie, growth is a natural state of being human, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything in nature grows. Everything changes.
Yeah, yeah. I used to get pissed off when I'd have a heap of clients leave, and then I changed my perspective and realized, okay, well, there's going to be a certain amount of clients who grow with me and are ready to jump up and take the steps with me, and the ones that aren't will fall off. And then, like you said, you attract more new people in as well.
Absolutely. You know, I've got 2 clients who have been with me for 12 years, you know, on and off. They come to me for certain times in their lives, like, you know, it might be a bit of mindset work, it might be a bit of business consultancy, it might be a bit of relationship kind of work and stuff like that. Or it might be for me to write a strength program for them. But they've been on and off with me for 12 years. They started in the gym.
Yeah.
One of them now, he's gone on to build a huge online music producing business just by following a couple of simple things that I know nothing about the music industry.
Yeah.
But by saying to him, dude, just take the chance, go to networking, make your music, put it online, see what happens. You know, and he's done it, and he's created magic. He really has.
That's awesome. That's cool. I want to know as well, how did you get clients from like royalty or celebrities and things like that? How did you step into that? Obviously not but how did you get into that world?
I'm quite cheeky, so I'll ask you. No, the celebrity one was an interesting one because obviously I had a slight bit of celebrity early on with the football. So I managed to know some reasonably interesting people, and they know people and they know people, and it was kind of by referral. But the Hollywood thing was, I was fortunate that there was a Hollywood actor lived in the local area. I had my gym, and one day they came into the gym and said, can I speak to the manager? And I came out and they said, look, you know, I need to train for this role. It has to be done secret squirrel. I don't want anyone to know I'm in here, blah, blah, and can you do something? And I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. And that's how that started. So that was my into that. We got on really, we're still friends today. You know, I still get messages off him, which is surreal when you do phone clips and you're like, oh, it's kind of really weird. And that led to meeting some really interesting people, like going around their house, having dinner and being introduced to others. And that kind of how that went. And what they really like is that, you know, one, I'm not, you know, I'm not the sort of person that just gets dumbstruck in front of these people. You know, I just talk as I normally do. I treat them as human beings, and I keep it to myself. You know, I don't go running off to Heat magazine or Grazia and say, oh, look who I'm training in my gym. I don't take pictures or anything like that. So they really appreciated that. That was that thing. The royalty thing was, again, that was a referral. So I have a friend that works with the Saudi royal family, and she was over in the UK last year, about a year ago. And they were looking for they called it mental coaching, mindset, effectively, life coaching. And they trust her. She's been working them for 10 years. They asked if they knew anyone. And they're undergoing a big change out there in Saudi at the moment. And a lot of they've got a huge royal family. I mean, they're everywhere. And they're wealthy beyond wealth. It's incredible. And they invest in a lot of businesses around the world, especially in the West, especially in London and Paris. So that they have all these sorts of interesting dynamics. Or when they're in Riyadh or wherever they are in Saudi, they're ultra conservative, ultra religious, and you know, just get on with their raw stuff and their politics and that, and then they come into the West and they completely change. So there's an interesting dynamic there, and they want to bridge that gap. So they asked my friend if they knew anyone that could come in and speak to them about that and how to, you know, help with the transition and that sort of thing. She mentioned it to me. I met them a year ago. It took 6 months for them to negotiate with me and get me a visa and get out there. And I went out at the beginning of this year and stayed out there for a good few weeks working with them, which was really, really good. So, you know, now I'm getting referrals from them and stuff like that. So that's kind of how it was.
There's so many lessons from what you just said for everyone listening. Patience, you know, don't just send something off and you don't hear back and then give up. So patience in that. Referrals are key, and you only get good referrals and connections with people and make good friends in different industries if you're a decent human being, obviously. And then and being humble as well, and being confident in yourself. To be like, well, this person's not better than me, or I don't need to be starstruck or whatever. We're all just human beings.
You know, it's really interesting because the biggest thing I can take out of all of that is sitting in a royal palace in Riyadh with one of the high-ranking members of the royal family, watching Rogue One, Star Wars movie, on a huge screen, you know, with him and explaining about Darth Vader to him, right? Because I'm a big Star Wars fan and I've read Darth Vader comics and that. And this, he was enraptured by it. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is quite surreal, you know? They're the experiences you want in life. That will stay with me forever, no matter what I do now. And it came just exactly as you said, by, you know, being yourself, just having a little bit about yourself to say, actually, I'm going to have a go at this. I don't know what happens, you know, whether it will go really well, whether it won't, but I'm just going to give it everything I've got and be humble and be agreeable and just serve at the highest level I can.
Exactly. I got the opportunity to go to Richard Branson's island for 5 days last year.
I saw that. It looked fabulous.
It was amazing. And the first day I was there, I was like, I'm around all these people that have made more money or achieved more things or are better than me. And after a day, I just dropped that. And I'm like, no, everyone's human beings. Some people have made more money than me and achieved different things. I might have made more money or achieved different things. And it's not even about money anyway. No, it's about who you are as a person.
Yeah, who you are and the impact you have, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter whether you impact one person or a million.
Yeah.
You impact someone.
Yeah.
And when you've done that, you grow, they grow, and on it goes like ripples in a pond, right?
Exactly. And I know you've mentioned books a few times now as well. What are some of your favorite books?
Some of my favorite books. The Alchemist, I love. I loved. Well, the one that started off was Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
That was one that started off. I've got. I keep the Tao Te Ching on my bedside table, and I read a verse of that, and I love the concept of that. How simple it is. How it's all about effortless action, Wu Wei, and about the balance of things. I love that, so I keep that there. Yeah. I'm reading, actually at the moment, I'm reading a superb book on the brain by Deepak Chopra and Randolph Tansey called Super Brain, which is that one. I'm reading that one at the moment. That's a really, really good book.
Sounds good.
So basically I read a wide variety of stuff.
Yeah. Have you read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks?
Yes, I read that quite some time ago.
I love that book.
Yeah. And I read another really big one that really helped in so many ways. That was a real aha moment. Was The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton.
Okay.
That when I read that about 10 years ago, that was like whoa, because that was my first introduction to the wonderful world of epigenetics. Right, that your genes aren't set.
Yeah.
That actually, about 5% of your genetic makeup is inherited, and the rest is up for grabs. So you can become, you can have, you can do pretty much anything you want if you have the desire to do it.
Yeah.
If you practice it properly for years and years, and if physically you can do it. So I couldn't beat Usain Bolt over 100 meters, no matter how hard I tried.
Yeah.
But I could get a fast 100-meter time.
Yeah.
with practice and diligence. So it has to be something that's in your capabilities. And then my favourite of all time are anything by Jim Rohn. I love Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
The way he told. So I'm a big believer in stories. The way that you can unfold a teaching inside a story, which is why I like The Alchemist.
Yeah.
And to listen to Jim Rohn, I've got all his DVDs. And I probably watch one a month now, just to check over with that.
Awesome. Cool. Well, it's been great chatting with you. I let this go on for probably double the time I normally do, but I really wanted to do that. So you've got a great story, great journey.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for inviting me on, Ellie. I love, we've known each other for a while. I love what you do, and it's been a delight to talk to you.
Thank you. So I guess last thing, where can people find you?
You can find me on my website, which is www.paulwebbcoaching.com. You can also find me, I'm quite active on Instagram, which is just at Paul Webb Coaching.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll have any links underneath as well. Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.